It is 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get this regular meeting of the USD 431 School Board started. Roll call, we have everybody here except Tracy and Kevin, and Jesse is joining us on, I guess, Zoom. So we will start with item 3, adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
No changes.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor? Jesse?
Are you there, Jesse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Passes 5-0.
I was on mute.
Okay, item 4, opportunity for visitors. See, which one of you guys has the speech ready for tonight?
Oh, me.
Oh, you?
Andy.
Okay. Would you like to say a few words? Okay. All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 5, reorganization. So we have the board president, board vice president, finance committee, negotiations, scholarship, sick leave, educational foundation, and governmental relations.
So last year's list is in the blue link on your board agenda.
Start them over.
Yeah,
Is it-
I mean,
okay.
yeah, just entertain a motion.
All right. I nominate Becky Mooney as president of the Board of Education.
I second that motion.
All
Okay,
right.
so we do this every year. We have to,
Somebody has to move the nominations cease.
yes, we have to move the nomination cease, then we can second the motion.
Madam President, I move nomination cease. Can we do it as a slate? Did you want to do it as a slate?
I mean, I would be okay with that if nobody had any changes that they wanted to make. If everybody's okay to stay on the committees that they're on.
And Tracy did indicate that she is fine to stay on the committees that she is on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
And I
you,
don't see Kevin on any of them anyway, so.
No.
So we would have to, you'd have to just amend your original motion.
And just,
Just say I amend my motion to include a slate for this,
To keep all of the nominations the same.
the slate as presented.
Yeah.
or I can just go through and
Freedom.
I'll put you on each one.
Yeah,
I mean,
because it'll be on
I can do the Robert's Rules way if you really want it, but we don't have to do that.
Let's speed this up a little bit.
so you can state
But-
that, but I can,
But you'll
I mean, we
do it the
can
correct way.
still, I mean, you can still list it as, you know, everybody stays the same and then, you know, in the minutes actually list it out
I'll figure
and not
something out.
have to do the whole nomination cease, you know,
Which is so
all that kind of
confusing.
stuff.
Yeah, it's
I know,
really,
it is.
it's not good any year that I've been a part of it. It's really not very.
It's your fault it all changed anyway.
I'm like,
Sorry.
I'd just rather not have to put everybody
no,
through
that
that.
makes it a lot easier.
Well, would
I was
be
trying to make it
if we
easier.
just-
No, no, you're fine.
Would it be easier if I just go down and say
The slate of,
this
If you
slate,
want
this is
to.
who's gonna be, and then somebody could, and that way we all know
That
who
way it's-
they are?
Yes, that way it's public
Okay.
knowledge, yeah.
Do you want to do that since you started the motion?
Let me see.
Just go through the list.
Okay. Here's the list. Which one
We
is it?
always have to complicate things, don't we?
Okay.
Really make
Sorry,
another one.
that's
So-
This will make it way easier.
This
I
one
just
is-
think this will help, yeah.
Okay, so,
Just start with-
all right, board president, Becky Mooney, board vice president, Sarah Tarleton, finance committee, Jessica Bays and Tracy Schneider, negotiations committee, Sarah Tarleton, Jesse Bays, Tracy Schneider, board scholarship committee, Neil Oakes, sick leave bank committee, Becky Mooney, educational foundation representative, Sarah Tarleton, and governmental relations, Julia Dennis.
so you have the second, you were the original second.
You have to
So you have the
cease-
second.
Nominations first, right?
So do you still want to cease nominations
Well, if she nominates the slate, he seconds it. I move
No.
nominations.
Nobody seconds it.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
She
move
nominates,
nominations.
then we have to do
Yes,
nominations
yes.
cease.
Madam President, I move nominations cease and we cast a unanimous ballot.
Are you still gonna second?
I was just getting ready to second. the original motion.
Well,
I have everything written down already, so I'm
So
not
sorry, she gets so tired.
Jesse, did you get all that? It's been moved and seconded to blank slate all of the nominations.
I got every bit of that mess.
Okay, good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes 5-0.
All right, good deal.
We like to confuse things just a little
Did
bit.
it sound like really good organized chaos, Jess?
Sorry, I was trying to make it simpler so we didn't
Yes.
have like.
Hey, that takes half the agenda off the table.
That would
So.
have been a long one. After that.
Great job,
Even
guys.
with that chaos, we still save time, so we're
That's
good.
right. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the 12/2 meeting, cash balance report, check journal, activities account, and acceptance of donations.
I will say the Kansas cash balance report, there was a journal entry for transferring money into the special education fund just today. And so, other than the federal funds, that should pretty much eliminate any of the negatives, which are federal funds. Just remember, we spend those down and then we request those. So it's okay for federal funds to go into the negative, in this instance. So.
So you're saying the 233,000
Yeah,
negative
we made it.
is
We
now-
made a transfer today. Yeah.
And the vocational fund, is that the same?
No,
that set up the same
we
way?
need to make a transfer out of the general. All of the vocational fund comes into the general fund, then we transfer that. So we need to make that transfer
Okay.
also, because we do pay salaries, specific salaries out of there, and so it's kind of a monthly basis to keep that up.
And we have donations, I believe, to accept.
Correct. We had 2 donations this month. Some information is listed there for Kathy Feist received a grant of, I believe, $1,000 to actually purchase books for her in-class library it's from the Cox Communications with the Wichita Foundation, and then also Emily Mooney received a grant as well from Cox Foundation as well for $2,500 for a classroom set of virtual reality headsets. And this is a project that she's actually been working on since she went to the ITSD conference last summer. She really sees that there's a real need to be able to use VR in the classroom to be able to help with dissections and some of the icky parts of science that some kids might not want to be a part of. And then also Brian Williams has received a $1,000 grant from the Credit Union of America based out of Wichita. And so he's been able to purchase some items for his counseling office to help with students.
That first one's Carrie Feist.
Correct.
I think you said Kathy, but that's okay. I
Carrie
wanna make
Feist,
sure it's
yeah.
on
Yeah, sorry.
the docket correctly. So, any other
Yeah.
questions?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, old business. Item A is solar discussion.
So just wanted to kind of keep you up to date and the idea of using solar on our buildings. Did have a discussion with Dr. Witt per our discussion that we've had in the past. just wanting Dr. Witt to be aware of our intentions, and not, not be in opposition. He was really encouraging, but also through that discussion, I've had some discussions with the city manager concerning, some of the regulations that are taking place in terms of parallel generation. So us generating power, the city either generating power or purchasing power from outside entities. So I'm still digging into if those are going to allow us to be able to continue with solar projects. One of the things is that if we go a full-scale solar project, then it limits anybody else in town, doing any kind of solar or parallel generation. So I want to be cognizant of that. So I want to continue to have those talks with our city manager to make sure that we're not keeping other people from doing it. We're doing, what we can to support our potential project, and then, making sure that all of the policies are followed. So I'll keep the board and the community up to date on that as I know more information.
Mr. Curtis, I had a question. Are we also at a parallel part pursuing the roof portion of this project as well as the solar? And the question on that is, are we designing the roof so that it could support? I understand that there have been some leaks even this week with trash cans out in the hallway, so I want to make sure that we don't get too hung up on the solar portion of it, and we've got the roof portion of the project.
The whole scope of the project would be the idea of contractors inspecting the roofs to make sure that they're adequate to be able to actually support the solar. So it wouldn't just be, hey, let's throw some solar panels up on the roofs. It would actually start from, is that an adequate foundation or base for us to actually put solar on there? And if it's not, then we wouldn't pursue that. Or if it is a needed roof that needs to be replaced, we could build that into the project as well. So that those two things actually go hand in hand. The other piece that kind of goes along with it is also, if we don't pursue going solar, then working through the process of opening up bids so that we can do a roof project in the very near future, because as we've had all of our roofs inspected, Roosevelt definitely is the one that needs to be replaced right away. And so if we're not going to pursue the solar area, then we need to start the process of start working with contractors to do a roof project.
What is the date that is our roof at Roosevelt already not insurable anymore as of 2025, or what's the date that our ability to insure that roof expires?
So we've never been told by our insurance company that we would not be insured.
Okay, so that whole roof lifetime, roofs over a certain age.
Right. So that is typically found in other insurance companies that we are currently not a part of.
Okay, and we haven't verified that with our insurance agency that.
I have not specifically verified that, but
that's probably
they have not.
Yeah.
Right. They have not come out and said there's a hard fast number of years.
I was just wanting to make sure that there wasn't a deadline that we're going to miss, especially where the roof is continuing to have issues that we don't. Is there a way that assessment process could start now while we're figuring out yes or no on solar?
Yeah, and I've got two contractors that have contacted and reached out to me. One of them has already done an inspection on our roofs, and that's where the grading process has been done in the past. Mm-hmm. And they're a statewide company. Then we'll probably start that process this month.
Okay,
So, yeah.
great.
So,
That's awesome.
the rooftop solar is primarily what we're looking at right now. If we are able to pursue that, that's really the area that we would go for. So any other solar that has been discussed, at least with us, is not really on the table. It's primarily the rooftop.
Yep, I just want to make sure that we didn't have some sort of a deadline that we were
Nope.
having against
No.
and recognizing
No,
the roofs
we're
continue.
okay on that. So,
Okay.
yeah, good question.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the daycare update.
So the daycare, we just had a meeting last week with the ABCC group, and some of the concern has been the Great Bend facility is not completely full, and so we have had, and then on our project, we've ran into hurdle after hurdle. So in terms of surveying the site, getting an address, zoning the site that is outside the exemptions that normal schools have. So the idea was to break ground in June. We're obviously past June. So there is still the plan to break ground. The ABCC group as a whole has agreed that we still do want to pursue the Hoisington daycare. There have been some modifications to the plan, which I think we've talked about, but we would still be looking at a facility that would be able to house around 38 to 45 kids. So we're still looking at a facility that would be able to serve a real need in town. We are going to be putting together a meeting with some of the community leaders in Hoisington to see about any other potential financial support that would be able to be put into going ahead with the Hoisington daycare facility. In terms of grant money, from the breaking ground of the Great Bend facility to when the Great Bend facility opened, through different legislative things that took place, about $500,000 of grant money was actually pulled back. Not because of anything that the daycare did, but because there was some legislature that changed. And so there is a need to support the the financial cost of the facility. And so we are going to be doing that probably within the next few weeks to a month, and I'll be keeping everybody updated as to when that meeting would take place and where that location will be.
I'm just curious, with the need for daycare, even in Great Bend, why isn't it at capacity?
So the primary reason is they got overloaded with infants and then they don't have as much capacity for infants. Just recently, they've redesignated some of the rooms, and there's been some modifications by KDHE in the ratios. And so they've redesignated some of those rooms and opened them up to younger children, to be able to bring in more younger children. What we're finding is there was also a shift to the new USD 428 3 and 4 year old program that also has it's not a daycare, but they can allow their 3 and 4 year olds to stay at that facility all day in kind of a different little area. And so preschool kids are not as prominent at the facility in Great Bend, the daycare facility that we're talking about in Great Bend. So there's multiple factors, but yeah.
I mean,
But they're trying to make some modifications to increase those numbers that they can service more infants.
okay.
So
It just seems like the experience that they've had so far hasn't been great, and I just don't want that happening here.
Right,
and for it not to be a success.
That's 100% understandable. One of the things that they've talked about is that the experience has allowed them to adjust and modify how they would open our facility, make it more aligned with the beginning of the school year, have more of the multi-level age group rooms to be able to allow for a better start of a higher capacity. So understandable.
I will admit, I'm very frustrated that we're doing an apples to apples comparison with Great Bend when the situations are very different. One, there's not a competing, like this is the school district system. Two, their daycare facility is not attached to a school. Ours is attached to a school that does have a preschool program for 3 and 4 year olds. So my first question is, have they countersigned the agreement that we approved as a board last month?
No, they have not.
Okay, so I think before we have meetings asking for money from the community, we need to have a signed agreement with that organization.
Understandable.
Also with that, I would want to see detailed at that meeting or coming to present to the board, the breakdown of the grant funding that was designated for non-Great Bend daycares.
Okay.
And I would encourage us to invite some of our county commissioners, particularly Dwayne White, who I know has been active on this issue, with the grant funding that was coming from the county commissioners dedicated to outside of Great Bend daycare facilities and development of daycare.
Okay.
So I definitely encourage and give our county commissioners a voice, especially since we have a Hoisington resident,
Yes.
to be present at that meeting.
And Dwayne was mentioned by name to be a part of those meetings as well.
Because we haven't had anybody, right, come and talk to us.
No, and we don't have a countersigned agreement. So I don't think it's fair to ask anyone for financial donations when we don't even have a signed agreement. And we were supposed to break ground last June. I also think that in order to get community buy-in, because we have had strong community support, stretching back to our strategic sessions that we had, that, that was one of the number one priorities that we had for the district, and we've continued to see that continued support from the community, that we would need some kind of a timeline to get, just looking at investment of dollars, since we've already been pushed back and we're still looking at a bare piece of ground that's, now covered in snow, going to be mud. I think it would be a little disingenuous to ask for financial support when we don't have a lot of this information to share.
Sure.
So I would encourage us for that in community engagement to have that level of detail.
Absolutely.
And then, since I haven't been the most active government relations member on the board, but I just got reelected back into that position, is this something that we should reach out to our new state senator and our new state representative about the grant funding? And remind them once again, and invite them to come to this meeting as well.
Okay. Yep.
My thought is with the grant money, it seems like it keeps going, down and down, and they're not, it's like, not getting as much as what they had said. So, is that going to continue to?
Right.
Yeah, and I would want to see money earmarked for this specific facility, which I don't think they're probably willing to do until we have a countersigned agreement. So right now we've got nothing legally binding between our two organizations.
It's just up in the air.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
But the original start of all of this was because we were going to be granted this money to pretty much cover it. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we're trying to figure out how we're going to fund it. So
yeah, I just want to make sure they've got the skin in the game,
right?
Are showing that they're committed, because right now we've put in, the rezoning and
100%.
And that last thing I would encourage is that if they're worried about capacity issues, and I'm sure our Roosevelt representatives can or Mrs. Walker could provide additional information, to think creatively. Maybe we could offer a slight price discount to employees of the district. That could be a teacher retention promotion. I know there's been an increase in the number of special needs students or students on an IEP that are in programs like TK and identified as early as preschool. So maybe there's some way to bring in additional revenue into that facility by providing services with Sunflower or something like that. But rather than saying we're just moving around dots, if we're worried about capacity and meeting the needs of the community, maybe there's some ways to think creatively in order to fill those slots.
Good point.
Okay,
Okay.
let's move on to item C, weight room project.
So about 3 years ago, we did go ahead and separate out the boys and the girls wrestling teams, which has been a good success, and many schools have followed suit after that. The idea with that was to actually look to the idea of building a weight room to allow for more practice space. Typically before Christmas break, practice space is not an issue, but we do use not the main gym. We do use the gym in the high school for girls, and we use the wrestling room at the activity center for boys. Then when we add middle school wrestling, which has had a huge boom over the last couple of years, we have a huge issue in terms of practice space. Currently, the middle school are doing combined practices at the high school, which then has shifted the boys' high school wrestling team to practicing in the morning most of the time because of a lot of the boys having work after school. In the past, we have split those practices. This year, we decided to combine those practices so that we could get it done with 3 coaches as opposed to the 4 coaches and splitting it out for the high school and boys at the activity center and girls at the high school. So the original intent was that we would look at building a facility at the high school to then move our weight room. So my question to the board is that something that we want to continue to pursue? And if we want to continue to pursue that, is it okay if I began to pursue a fundraising campaign to help with that capital project?
Have we had any progress on plans to renovate the locker rooms at the high school?
That was my number one thing. Locker rooms are
If we
huge.
don't have adequate locker room facilities, I think we should make a priority to cover some of that deferred maintenance first.
Okay.
Otherwise, are you talking about building another set of locker rooms in this facility as well at the
No,
high
it would
school?
not have locker rooms in it.
Okay, so we would be
Mhm.
going from adequate locker room facilities at the activity center to completely inadequate facilities to support additional sports teams. Because then you would be talking about supporting basketball and wrestling in the same set of locker rooms during the same practice times.
No. So basketball would still. Okay, so say that again.
The wrestlers that are going to the activity center are
Okay.
using the lockers at the activity center, correct?
Right.
Right. So any wrestler that is not practicing would require locker space. And I'm assuming the basketball teams also use locker space at the high school.
Separate locker facilities.
Or I guess they practice at
we
the
have, we have
activity center.
enough we have enough locker rooms at the AC that basketball and wrestling can be in separate areas.
Okay, I'm just thinking
Mhm.
wrestling is a sport that is highly focused on sanitation, and with
Right.
the issues that were arise with the locker rooms this fall, that before we start building more stuff, we need to take good care. So, and thank you to the folks that put together that fantastic video and are pursuing some grant dollars to help with that.
Okay.
But yeah, I have a strong preference for taking care of some deferred maintenance before we
Okay.
take additional construction on.
Yeah, you
Okay.
nailed my number one thing, which was the locker room. And also, that was also, you know, we know this anyway, you know, sitting on the board, we've had conversations about, you know, some locker room pieces as we've gone. But I will also mention, I mentioned this to you, Mr. Crowdis, was our Labor Day tour, you know, when people came through, one of the
Yep.
number one things that I heard from just people talking, just kind of, you know, fly on the wall was, you know, talking about the locker room situation. Just kind of surprised, I guess, in some regard in the state of it and what it looked like at the time too. I know there was some work yet to come, but yeah, locker room especially and how that would work logistically in the placement of said new weight room, you know, where you are with locker room facility, how that all just kind of works in the numbers, of course, and how that all shakes out too. So that's definitely one of my main things to think through would be the locker room situation before even, you know, thinking about what we would do for a potential weight room at that location.
Okay.
And then also, I think we had discussed a while back, seeing how, like what shape the existing building is in. And if, you know, if we can still use that building
Right.
and, you know, have a contractor come in to see,
Yeah.
you know, get their thoughts and,
Well, yeah, because I think even when Dean was still here, he had talked to a contractor locally and they had checked the building out and he thought it was structurally sound.
Right. Yeah, and the concern that I have with using that building that's sitting back there right now is that now we lose all of that storage space.
Is that, but we just cleaned out a bunch of storage space under not an adequate amount?
No,
Okay.
not an adequate amount and not adequate for the storage of the stuff that we need to store. So all of those mats, number one, we don't have enough storage underneath both sides of the bleachers to store all of the pole vault and high jump mats, but also the moisture level underneath the bleachers would really cause damage to the pole vault and high jump mats. So that's a concern. We want to make sure we don't lose any storage, whenever it comes to that. But the idea of can we better utilize that space, and we can continue to look at that as well. So, yep. So, okay, I hear you. I'm hearing, look at locker rooms and
I think that needs to be a priority.
okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. I appreciate the conversation.
speaking of the locker rooms, I didn't watch that video.
I haven't yet.
You haven't either?
No,
Okay,
I
I didn't know
haven't
if, like, we could pull it up or not, but.
It was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I would have to pull up my
That's-
email right now, but yeah.
Okay.
So
I can text that, I can text the YouTube link real quick if you want me to, or just email it in a separate link.
I mean I've got it. I would need to log in to my email on there. So yeah.
I didn't think about asking you beforehand. It was when we were talking.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that'd be nice if you could show it on the big screen. But
I mean, is that something you want me to do?
I can pull my email up. Or you want that thing?
Well, I can just pull mine and then, because I've already got the email.
Can you just hide the screen for a minute while you log in?
Oh, I'm not logged into. That's not Chrome. That's why.
Darn two-step verification.
Now we gotta turn the volume up. What's the channel? See if we can get this to work. Oh,
I think you saw that muted.
sorry.
No, you're right.
Okay, what did we do last time to make that work?
Thank you.
Is that the one I want?
I think it's the second one.
Is it the second one? Okay.
Give it a try then.
Welcome to Hoisington High School. This is our football and track locker room. As you can see, first when we walk in the door, it doesn't close. It just comes right back open. That needs fixed. So we come over here, we have these benches, training benches who've been here for, I don't even know how long, but they're super old, and are just sitting benches. As you can see, sit down, super wobbly, and if you get a lineman over there on that side, the whole thing tips over. There's also nails coming out of the benches, so you don't want to sit on that. Moving over to our lockers, if you see there's rust on the tops and on the bottom of the lockers. If you come over here, most of these lockers don't have hooks like this one right here. There's no hooks to hang anything on, and also this one only has one hook, so you can't even hang your helmet and pads. And if we look on top, it's all rusted up there and dirty. And on top of these lockers, we don't have much storage in here, so we have to put our cleats and store extra cleats up there for players who can't afford cleats or just need spare ones for practice. When we move over here to the showers, this is the worst part of the locker room because we just painted over the black mold this summer, but you can still smell it in here, and this is where we have to shower after practice and after games. It's not the most fun to do at all. And we come over to this side of the locker room. The showers in here, none of these showers work over here. They had to rip one out. The floor is still dirty. There's still black mold on the wall that they painted over. Only these showers work right here. And this is the JV side of the locker room. They can't fit all their stuff in one locker. They have to smash everything together, so they have to do it like that, and before practice every day, get all their stuff out of the bag and get it together. It just takes so much time to do. It's very inconvenient because these are not the size of what a football locker room should have. And we come back over here to the sink. Now, there's no privacy in the bathroom. There's no door for anything, so everything's just out in the open. Everybody's watching you do your business, and it's kind of gross. We come to the storage room. This is where we put all of our football gear for over when we're in off season. And it's pretty small. We just have to put everything in boxes and throw it in here, really. We got our tackling dummies and all the gear we use for practice and games. Our filming crew stuff all just gets thrown in here because we don't have anywhere else to put it.
As a senior here at Hoisington High School, these are the same lockers that my dad used when he played here, and he graduated in 1989.
As students who have played football here for 4 years and put our heart and effort into this program, it really means a lot to us if we could win this grant and get a better locker rooms for the upcoming players who are coming into this program and putting their hard work into it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zach Baird. I'm the head football coach here at Hoisington High School. I'm actually from Hoisington. I've been around the program since the early 90s when my dad was an assistant coach here. It's a great program, something I take a lot of pride in. Unfortunately, the one thing that hasn't changed since the 90s, as far as I remember, is the locker room. It's the same locker room they've had since then. Our players have talked to you guys about that, and they've done a great job explaining what we go through. They didn't touch on the fact our locker room floor is extremely slick. It's something we deal with. It's a safety issue. It's not uncommon to see our guys fall down in the locker room. One thing I think that is special about Hoisington is our community is always willing to help. We're constantly going to our community, asking for help. Unfortunately, we're 54% free and reduced lunches in our community, and there comes a point where they can no longer help out even though they want to. Our players are hardworking kids. It's not uncommon for us to have 90% of our team make 90% or more weight room attendance in the summertime. And so when they say that they pour their heart and soul into the program, they truly do. And it's bigger than winning high school football games on a Friday. The big thing for us as a program is we want to stress the importance of becoming better men, better individuals. And I think one way that we show that is the type of students our players are, not just during the season, but throughout the entire school year. We run eligibility reports every week, and one thing we do as coaches is we're going to check those eligibility reports, and we take great pride in the fact that none of our football players are on that report. And if they are, we address it immediately. They do a great job of getting that grade up, but it's something that they do that represents our program and the culture that we stand by. So with all the hard work that our student athletes pour into their classwork as well as football, hopefully through this grant, we can give our student athletes a locker room that is safe and operational and something that they can be proud of to represent the hard work that they put into it.
That's great.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your input on that.
All right, we will move on to item 8, new business. A would be the December 2024 policy updates.
This is just the first read on this, so I would encourage you to take a look at the summaries and work through, if you do have any questions with these. Looks like there's some pretty significant changes in DFAC. Grants, subrecipient monitoring procedures. We'll be taking a look at that. Fundraising activities. I know that's definitely something that our board has discussed from time to time, so we'll be taking a look at that as well. And so just kind of take a look at those at your convenience over the next month, and then I'll be giving you a summary of any of them that I feel like we need to adopt in partial or not at all, as opposed to just adopting them in whole.
All right, thank you for providing that for us to
Yes.
look at. There are a lot this time, I think.
I think you're right.
Quite a few.
I think you're right.
All right, so we'll move on to item B, option for alternative high school environment for next year.
So B and C go with each other. B is looking at the idea of us actually hosting our own alternative high school environment. Currently, we have 2 environments that we are utilizing, and we're utilizing those through ESDAC Service Center. So the one is an alternative school that takes place down in Great Bend, and it's an on-site facility. Students actually go to the ESDAC alternative site, and students work on computer. If a student is going there this year, we don't pay anything out of pocket this year. We get that funding. They're our student, we get that funding, and then the next year we pay for that student. Currently, and since I've been here, we've had anywhere between 8 and 12 students that we then pay that $5,000 back to SDAC the next year. The second, we've talked about that we are actually partnering with SDAC for a virtual school. There are students, again, they do all of the fine work through KSCE. We get the funding, and then we pay SDAC 60% of that, and we get to keep 40% of it. We don't have to jump through all of the hoops to actually host the virtual school. We don't have to go through the multiple counts that take place. SDAC takes care of all of that, and that has been successful, and we currently have about 6 students that are participating in that as well. Since I got here, Joel and I have been talking that if our numbers were to hold true in that in the SDAC alternative school in Great Bend, maybe we should look at doing our own. The possibility is there that we could actually build an entrance to the north side of the activity center into the craft room, make an entrance into the craft room, and then also an entrance into the fitness center. That way that there would be electronic access to the fitness center outside of the, it would be the normal, it would be the normal hours, but then also we would have electronic access into the craft room for students to actually come to the craft room and work on their computer in an alternative education environment. With the money that we would save by sending it to SDAC, we would, potentially have $50,000 that we would be able to staff that. Between the $8,000 to $12,000 range that we've had for the 5 years that I've been here, that would average out to about $50,000 that we would retain as a district and be able to use that as staffing. Then C, I'll come back to B and ask for questions, but then C is the idea of actually going to hire an architect. That's a service. We don't have to put that to bid, but hire an architect. The architect that we would be looking at is the same one that we have used for other projects within the district, Lincoln, the middle school, the entrances that were done at each of the schools during the construction of Lincoln. But the alternative high school would be, obviously we need to staff that. There would be some expense in terms of the computer program that would be used to be able to facilitate that. But we also have a contract with Smoky Hills that we utilize that computer program as well. So discussion, questions, thoughts?
I'll say in general terms, I personally do like the thought of the, electronic access just from a security standpoint to the fitness center.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about all of our buildings, obviously how security being of the utmost importance, we've got students at the activity center in the gymnasium, and anyone's able to walk in there
Mm-hmm.
anytime. That's kind of been a big concern of mine just in general. And I know that's the setup of it as it is right now. So just on that level, I do like that idea quite a bit because of the security aspect of it.
And that's a discussion that I've already began to have with the rec, in the idea that we do look at moving over completely for that entire building, having some sort of electronic access for that safety reason, that Joe Blow off Highway 4 doesn't just show up at the activity center and come in. There's still people to buzz people in during regular business hours, but our community members that have had access to the activity center since it opened, they would have a fob that would then let them in. We would begin it on the back side or the north side, but then also start that process of working the other doors to be able to have fob access so that it is a safety thing.
So I have two questions on building a separate entrance. I understand the need for security. However, if you have the general public and students in the building, anytime they're not in the classroom, they're mixing with the general public. So unless that entrance includes a bathroom and a lunchroom, those are my big, as soon as one of those students has to go to the bathroom during their alternative learning day, they are therefore leaving a secure area and going into a general public access area.
And we're not necessarily putting the entrance into the craft room to keep them away from. It's.
So why is the current access not sufficient? Because they can come in the back door and go, and you could put in, if you're putting electronic locks on all the outside, and they can come in the back door.
We wouldn't necessarily put electronic locks on all. I mean, that's.
You just said you were going to fob people into the building.
We would do that on the front of the building.
But the back side would be open?
No, the only door in the activity center that is unlocked is the front door.
But could you make an electronic?
We could.
Instead of building a whole entrance, you could just.
Yep.
I mean, I'm trying to see the need, because like.
I can't justify needing.
Okay.
The second someone needs to go to a bathroom, the second you have any sort of lunch scenario.
I understand those things. Is there? Yeah. I mean, is there any? Because the thought process too was we have rearranged everything so that people have access to the fitness center during the 30 dates that we have for activities. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's been kind of an issue. So I mean, that would then give electronic access to the fitness center, and we wouldn't have to worry about them coming to our activities.
Seems like a very large, expensive expenditure for a very small amount of people.
Well, we made a huge change for one person that asked for us to do that.
Well, but I feel like, we're spending this much on a project like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't feel the need for us or for the rec center to have to oversee those people going into the fitness center during an event. I mean, if we lose money, from people going in and just watching without paying, I mean, to me, it's like, okay, we'll eat that cost. More so than building a separate entrance just for those people.
Okay.
The second would be, as you're talking about this, just communicating, because that has been the election and voting place, which I know only happens.
Yep.
But the county would have to designate a different area for voting for all of the townships.
And it's also the craft room and most of the time the daycare room when.
During summer rec.
Well, and that's and
things that go on there. So.
And those would be outside of the
would have to be had with the activity center.
Which I think are minor discussions,
right?
But just on the checklist.
I mean, just out of courtesy, those conversations need to be had too.
Absolutely.
I like the idea of having that classroom, maybe even having some additional, like an additional passcode or something, or maybe to get into that classroom to give students while they're in their learning situation. I like the idea of utilizing that space. Especially if the money is going to pay for the support position. So I'm in support of that. I just want to make sure that we're.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. Yeah, that's like my generality is just like the security thing. So like being able to do that without the extra expenditure of having to, explore that separate entrance, so to speak.
So go ahead and just using that northeast corner entrance. You guys are okay with that?
I'd rather do a small expenditure to retrofit that door as needed versus, and I know there's been some discussion maybe, because I know there's some issue with the wrestling mats fitting through certain doors or not fitting in certain doors.
That's the middle.
Oh, that's the middle school. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind.
That's the middle school doors.
Apologies, my
but
apologies.
I think I appreciate the perspective. So thank you.
Yeah,
So I have a question about the, having not the ASDEC anymore and having that in our district where we're having to pay for teachers. Are we really gonna save money by the time we hire a teacher to come in and sit with those kids, and more likely than not, we're gonna need more than one teacher at a time?
So that is something we're still exploring. We feel like we can staff it with one person, and with one person, it wouldn't necessarily be a savings, but it would be a wash in terms of overall if we do have to pay that person. At least we're able to keep whatever's left over. Right now, we're having to pay out 100% of it to SDAC. I don't think it would cost us 100% of the FTE, which is $5,088 a student. I think we would be able to keep more of that money as opposed to paying out 100% of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess my concern is how safe is it for one teacher to be over there at the activity center alone with, and I have a child that goes to the ASDEC in Great Bend, and it's not like they're well-behaved kids.
Okay, no, that I appreciate that concern for staff safety. Thank you.
And then on top of that, I think they have 4 or 5 teachers there on a daily basis.
What are their hours? Do you know off the top of your head?
I know they start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then their classes get out at 3, but then they also do night classes. So.
Okay.
But during the day, when most of the high school kids are there, it's 8 to 3 is the class setup, and I think they have at least 4 teachers with them.
Okay, and I've reached out to all of the league schools as well as some other schools that I trust about getting policies and staffing and those types of things. So I'm looking into what we need to kind of do to figure out if it's going to be feasible, specifically. So no, I appreciate that. Yep.
Will there be, certain criteria for children that
yes.
want to attend that way versus traditional? Because I could just see,
yes.
Well, it's at the activity center, everybody wants to do it now.
Right. No, that is definitely something that we are taking a look at and considering because we do want there to be a process to it and it not just be a swing the doors wide open.
Right.
But
and I definitely think there has to be a structure to it with teachers adequate to, I know that the learning is online, but they have to, again, we're not dealing with kids that are straight A students that don't struggle, that are, compliant with getting up and going to school. We're dealing with kids that are struggling, and that's why they're going over there. And so they need that extra push from those teachers. They need that extra guidance. I know the work's a little bit different, but we still have to have somebody that is going to be able to really help them with whatever the line of work is. So.
Yeah, my past experience has been it's really important to monitor the progress on a daily and weekly basis. Set goals for those students to say this is how many modules to do. This is how many modules you have for the whole class, and then kind of help them break that down to be able to kind of take a look at that and break it into chunks that are easier to manage.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And and just, being able to go through those modules with them. So it's not like just putting, an aide or something over there. I would feel like it would have to be somebody that has the education to teach them.
May I make a suggestion, Mr. Crowdis?
Yep.
Maybe not in February, maybe in March or yeah, whenever you feel, maybe you and Mr. Mason could put together kind of a pitch for us.
Sure.
And talk about some of these logistical and, kind of how this all works kind of pitch.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Good discussion.
Okay.
So at this time, I would say no action is needed for C.
Okay.
And then
Just
I'll,
table
I'll,
it for now.
yep, and then I'll communicate with them.
Okay. All right, we will move on to item D, request for out-of-state travel.
So through through a group called Super Courageous, I was reached out to about a leadership workshop at Deloitte University in Grapevine, Texas, which is just outside the Dallas area. I've been accepted to that Leadership Institute, and I am requesting to be able to use district transportation to attend that February 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And then also I'll be attending the Northwestern Oklahoma State University Career Fair in Alva on March 24th. And I'm requesting the use of district transportation for attending that.
Anybody have any questions?
Can you just explain what the benefit of both of those are for our district?
Sure. The hope is that through the Super Courageous Leadership Institute, I'll get a higher capacity for leadership with working with other district superintendents and district leaders from other places, as well as attending the Northwestern Oklahoma State Career Fair, so that we have a broader cast whenever it comes to reaching out to prospective teachers in this very difficult job market to find teachers. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know this isn't in the scope of this, but is anybody else gonna go with you to that career fair?
I haven't talked to anybody
Okay. I just
specific
know
yet,
that
but
usually have
usually
somebody else.
Joel and Farron will go, or the other administrators, depending on the openings we may have. So
Okay.
if we have elementary openings, then I would open it up to, because it'll be a down and back, and I won't stay the night anywhere.
Yeah.
It's about 2 hours down there, so.
I move to allow for the use of district transportation by Mr. Crowdis to attend 2 events, February 21st through the 23rd and March 24th.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded for the out-of-state travel. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, passes 5-0. All right. Item E, bonded employees.
So for the first time since I've been here, the auditors have asked us whether or not any of our district employees are bonded. Doing further investigation, it is board policy, and I believe I listed that board policy, that the board clerk, the board treasurer, and the superintendent should be bonded for $100,000 each. And so I've reached out to our insurance company. We're covered currently under liability insurance, but we're not specifically bonded. So we will go through that process of bonding those. Now, I've only been bonded one other place, and it was not for a full $100,000. Do any of you recall? The board policy says that these 3 employees are bonded for $100,000. Do any of you recall the process of bonding anyone else and what that amount was?
No.
I have no
I sure
idea.
don't.
Because as I've talked to the insurance companies, they were like, well, it's more typical to bond somebody for $25,000 as opposed to $100,000.
Have we asked KASB?
I have not reached out to KSB on that particular. Actually, no, I have not. So
They might have some.
Right. Probably a good place to start.
Okay.
See what they would recommend.
And then possibly, depending on the recommendation, I have to change the policy then,
right.
if we can
Let me
lower
double
it.
check.
Yeah. Well, and I'm seeing some school districts too have a blanket fidelity bond, so it covers multiple employees.
And that's from talking to our insurance agent, that's kind of what we have right now, but our board policy specifically says that we're bonded.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Without knowing the history, maybe checking with KASB about what they recommend or what their standard.
Yeah, and then we could talk about it again next month, once you get some additional information. Sound okay?
Yep, I will call KSB actually tomorrow and find out about that.
In the update, could you send out the specific full language of the bond, the Board of Education policy too? That way we know when we have to change
I think that
language.
was, I will do it again.
Oh, was it
I've
in the
done that.
update?
I will do it again.
Okay, my apologies. I'll go back and check too.
Just in the last,
Yeah,
last
I'll do it again. I'll just put it in there again. I've got it on my desktop.
I apologize.
Nope, that's no big deal.
Okay. Everybody okay to bring it back up next month then?
okay.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to item 9, reports. I know it's been an hour. I know you guys have
Can tell they're
met your
antsy to get
time,
out.
so feel free
They said
to,
they wanted to stay.
unless you really want to listen to the report that Mr. Crowdis is about to give,
And it's gonna be
you're welcome
very
to
short.
stay. If not, this is your out. You're welcome, thanks for coming.
We'll tell Kel she made it.
Yeah. You can always tell when the hour's up, they get a little
I guess you
antsy,
can't
so.
see.
It's like, should we get up? Can we go? Just give them the ups. Here we go. All right, Mr. Kravis.
Okay, so short, hopefully, knock on wood. I know Becky always appreciates that.
Yep.
So we have submitted our KISA report. We got that submitted. They have actually gone ahead and given us some feedback on that. One of the last questions was, what are we going to do after our year is done with the KISA plan that we have in place? And I needed to revise and update that. So that's been resubmitted. So I'm hoping to have some feedback within the next couple of days on that. And so just a reminder, we chose to go with the fundamental of standards alignment. And then within standards alignment, we're looking at how can we do professional development as well as professional collaboration to make that standards alignment happen. And that work will actually start February 17th at our in-service day. Secondly, health insurance from ESDAC has been a hot topic. We had a meeting Thursday right before Christmas break, and ESDAC has actually hired some consultants to be a part of that work as well. They primarily took care of the the facilitation of that meeting. And there are multiple things that SDAC is taking a look at in terms of health insurance. So I'm hoping over the next weeks to months to have a little bit more idea of bringing some of that information to you as well as to the insurance committee and staff. And then finally, I think we did a great job of communicating the Power School breach and how that has affected the district. Carrie and Jordan have both worked really well to help us to be able to close that breach. It was a third-party support that Power School works with that had no idea that they had been breached, and they did not have, we just went through the whole two-factor authentication to get into my email. That company did not have that. And so that has been taken care of. That's the first thing that Power School has already done. We individually as a district have already shut that portal down so that is not an open portal if it were to be breached again. We are a hosted site, so with the exception of that support, really we communicate with Power School through encrypted messages, but there shouldn't be any other portals that we have to worry about. All of our district staff has been, that have access to Power School, is in the process of actually getting their passwords changed, and we required them to use a specific format on that. And so, I really felt like that our district did a really good job of, kind of shoring up the weaknesses and then moving forward with that. So, I hope we were able to communicate to the best of our ability that did take place. We have not gone so far as to have the parents change passwords or students change passwords. We want to have some discussion with that before that actually takes place. But as of now, I feel like we're in a good place. I've gotten 2 emails from KSDE, not specifically to me, but saying here's what you need to do, and we had already done those things. So I feel like we're in a much we were ahead of the curve, and I attribute that to Carrie and Jordan's help that all took place. So those are the items that I have for this evening.
Okay. Any questions? Any board member reports?
I just wanted to commend Mr. Crowdis and all the administrators and crews that worked on the snow removal with an unprecedented snow event. So, and for making the right call to keep bus routes and kids safe. And so thank you for all of that extra work to take care of an unprecedented weather event.
Thank you. And I have to give Tyler a lot of credit. So Tyler worked a lot during that time frame. So I appreciate that and appreciate his help. Also, I'd like to mention it is Board Member Appreciation Month, so we do appreciate the efforts that you give us as board members. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, legislative report.
I did go ahead and just add this. This is the KASB resolutions on state issues as approved by the Delegate Assembly at the KASB conference. So those are the specific priorities that KASB as an organization has put together to be legislative priorities for this year.
Okay. Move on to item 10, personnel. Oh, let's see.
I do have one actual personnel item other than the hirings and the designations.
So we can go back and discuss that for how much time do you need? 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Okay. I move we go into executive session for 10 minutes pursuant to discussing non-elected personnel under the KOMA exception for the purpose of discussing non-elected personnel with Mr. Crowdis present. And the meeting will resume at 8:25.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Passes 5-0. All right. Coming out of executive session with the following. We're going to move to accept the resignation of James Cook, high school math, and Elizabeth Liker for Lincoln Aid.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
5-0. I move to accept the nomination of Daniel, is it Kewell, for the position of aide at Lincoln as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
5-0. And then I move to accept the nomination of Jerry Stricker. It says sticker on here, but it's Stricker for the position of bus driver as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Okay, so now the same motion. I move we go into executive session. You think 10 minutes is sufficient for that too? Yeah. For 10 minutes pursuant to discussing non-elected personnel under the KOMA exception for the purpose of discussing non-elected personnel with Mr. Crowdis and Mrs. Cowan present. The open meeting will resume at, let's just say 8:40.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Do you see any need for?
So I guess coming out of executive session with no motions, correct?
Correct. Not anymore.
All right. Negotiations. So I move to adjourn.
I second. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Julie.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Thank you guys.
Who
Thanks,
seconded that?
Jesse.
Thank you.
Julia.
Yeah.
Take one.